Hello, everyone. Welcome to Final Cut, where you don't have to be a horror fan, but it sure helps. Today, we are going to be covering the new film by Curry Barker that is doing numbers in the box office right now and is a welcome addition to the YouTube pipeline to the horror industry. So, Obsession is a movie about a guy who is in love with a girl and he can't express those feelings in a normal way. So he decides to make a wish, wishing that, well, she loved him more than anyone else. And that quickly backfires. And we'll obviously get into that in the video. Obsession has a group of pretty unknown actors and actresses. Indy Navarrete stars as Nikki. I have seen her before in Superman and Lois, a CW comic book TV show where she portrayed a love interest and friend to one of Superman's sons, and she was phenomenal in that. So I'm very glad to see that she got a big role like this in such a popular movie. Michael Johnston stars as Bear. Some of you may know him from Teen Wolf. I watched the show, but I don't remember him specifically. Megan Lawless as Sarah. She most notable work for her was The Hate You Give. I believe that was 2019. Um, and then we have Cooper Tomlinson, who plays Ian. Cooper is the other half of That's a Bad Idea, the YouTube channel with him and Curry Barker, where they did a lot of sketch comedy, and then they kind of developed these short horror films that they put on YouTube for years, and some of them have become pretty acclaimed. I know The Chair is really good. I've seen that one. I've seen the Milk and Cereal. They're kind of found footage slasher movie, which is very good. I would definitely recommend that. That's just on YouTube for free. Anybody can watch that. I would highly recommend it. It's very good. All right, now we're gonna go over the plot. This is obviously heavy spoiler territory. If I would highly recommend watching this movie before you were to listen to this. It's a very good movie. Probably one of the best horror movies I've seen in a long time. As of right now, my horror movie of the year, probably maybe even the decade. So we'll get into it right now. The movie opens up and Bear is kind of pouring his heart out to this girl at the diner, and he's telling her how he feels about her, how he hears her in every song that he listens to. Pretty, pretty sweet stuff. And turns out that it's a waitress, and she is sitting in for the role of Nikki. And Bear is actually at lunch with his friend Ian. The waitress thinks that what Bear is doing is sweet and kind, and it's a very good gesture, and she thinks it will go over well. And Ian has terrible advice, and so he tells her to call her high school nickname of Freaky Nikki, and you can only imagine how terrible that would go. Ian keeps telling him, Bear, you got nothing but time. You got nothing but time. And he comes home later that night to find out that his grandma's cat had passed away after getting into her leftover medicine. Bear is living in his grandmother's home. It sounds like she had passed away, and now he is taking over her home and now lives there. And he was taking out care of her cat until Sandy, the cat, passed away. Nikki calls. She wants him to come out to trivia night. He doesn't want to, but of course, what does Bear do? Bear goes out to trivia night. And while they're on the call, Nikki drops her crystal necklace down the drain. So in a gesture of goodwill, and obviously him trying to win Nikki over, he stops by a crystal shop to buy a necklace, but instead he leaves with the plot device for the movie, the One Wish Willow. Um, so we're at trivia night. It's Ian, Nikki, Sarah, and Bear. They all work together, at Sarah's father's music store. Trivia night ends, and Ian and Sarah want to go out. They want to go do karaoke, but Nikki just wants to go home. So Bear, being the quote unquote nice guy he offers to give her a ride home. And so they get in the car and they drive home. And on the drive home, Nikki kind of expresses her feelings about life and what she's going through and how Bear's the only person that she can talk to. And honestly, I feel like that is a win in the column of I believe that she may have actually had feelings for Bear prior to making the wish. I know there's a lot of speculation out there about that, and I mean, obviously, we'll never know. But part of me thinks that if he would have just expressed his feelings, that maybe none of this would have happened. Um, but we'll never know. She mentions that she wants to write a book, and that's why she's put her 2 weeks in. And there was a lament earlier that they're running out of time, as opposed to what Ian said that they have nothing but time. And then once they get home, Nikki asks if Bear has feelings for Sarah, because Sarah has a crush on Bear. And he says no, and Nikki says the line, "Well, if I have a crush on a guy, no one ever knows," which again also to me lends into that she may have feelings for Bear, and that's kind of her subtle hint to say, "Hey, dumbass, if you like me, tell me now." But he doesn't say anything, of course, and he gets out of the car and he makes the worst possible move you could ever make. He fucking calls her Freaky Nikki. Oh my God. I almost sunk into my chair when I heard him say that. She is disgusted. She's annoyed. She turns around and she basically tells Bear, if you have feelings for me, you have to tell me now or never. And he says no. He just takes it on the chin and doesn't let her know, doesn't tell her anything. And honestly, I kind of think for a second there when he says that he doesn't have feelings for her, she almost seems disappointed. Like she has a little look in her on her face, and almost like she wanted him to say yes. I mean, obviously that's me. I would love to hear what everybody's opinions are on that. And then we get to the turning point of the movie. Nikki walks away. Bear pulls out the One Wish Willow, opens the box, and he says, "I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the fucking world." The worst idea ever. He looks over and Nikki is standing on her porch still, staring back at Bear. And she comes up to the car and she's acting a little strange, and she asks Bear to come inside, and she says that she lost her cat. And then she kind of like, well, wait, no, you lost your cat. And then she has her first snap. She snaps out of it. She says, wait, what the fuck? I'm acting so weird. And then almost like the driver gets back in the seat, and then Nikki comes around the car and insists that Bear takes her back to his place. And Bear says that he's freaked out. And then Nikki sits in the car and claims that her dad is dying and begins to cry. And a pretty unsettling thing that I didn't notice the first time I watched this, but when she's crying in the car, her body is not moving like you typically would when you're crying, or in her head's not moving. She's just face down on the front dash of the car, crying, and no movement whatsoever. Super creepy. Then we get to their first night. Bear takes her home, back to his place. And she walks in. She's acting weird again. She mentions that the house smells like Bear. Um, Nikki asks Bear to sleep with him because she doesn't want to be alone. So he agrees, and she cuddles up to Bear, and they begin to make out. And there's a song playing that will come into place, and it is called "Televisions" by Current Joys. It's a great song, really good song. It starts to play, and Nikki then snaps back to the real Nikki, and she lunges off the bed, and she's screaming, what the fuck?" And uh, then obviously the possession Nikki, the obsession Nikki, claims that it's a panic attack. After she claims it's a panic attack, they go to bed, and Bear wakes up in the middle of the night, and he goes to search the One Wish Willow on the internet, and there's some pretty funny reviews on there. There was one that said, "My mom was ugly her whole life, and now she's beautiful." Um, so yeah, there's people on there claiming it works, claiming it doesn't. Um, and then one of the first real indicators that something is wrong with Nikki. Bear wakes up alone and comes out to find that Nikki made a fucking memorial of his cat, including the cat's dead body that she drug out of the dumpster and put on the kitchen floor. Yeah. But Bear's like, whatever. I don't care. Obviously he cares. He says that that's it's fucked up and you shouldn't be doing that. And um so him and Nikki go to work, and Bear pulls Ian aside to have a conversation talking about the night. And there's this really cool shot where you can definitely see in the background, it's unfocused obviously, but in the background behind Bear, you can see Nikki at the register, and she is just staring daggers at Bear and Ian the whole time they're having this conversation. Um, and Ian says that he's going to talk to Nikki, and he does. And then when the shift ends, Nikki acts pretty normal. She says that she's going to get a ride home from Ian, and Bear seems okay. That's fine. Um, and then he gets a call from Ian later saying that he talked to Nikki, and Nikki said that she was pretty fucked up last night, and that she was on MDMA. Um, so Bear just kind of leaves it at that. And there's a really cool shot. I didn't even really notice the first time I watched it. When Bear's on the phone with Ian, you can see Nikki in the window. You can see her shadow. And as soon as he's about to hang up the phone, you see her shadow move into the door, and she knocks on the door. Bear opens it, and he opens the door, and there's this really cool shot of Nikki where she's in a red dress, and the shadows are worked so perfectly that you can't even see her face. The only thing that you can really see are eyes sparkling off, or light sparkling off of her eyes. And it's a really cool shot. The cinematography in this movie is amazing. And if I heard correctly, it's a first time horror movie cinematographer, and I mean they killed it. They knocked it out of the park. And she comes over and she proclaims that she has feelings for Bear, that she's been having these since Christmas, and she claims that she knows that Bear has feelings for her, and he says yes. And in this moment, probably my favorite piece of music from this movie, "Love Is in the Air" Part One, plays, and it plays over this dating montage of Bear and Nikki. And as the montage continues, Nikki becomes more and more interested in Bear and less interested in what they're actually doing. And Bear kind of seems to start to get annoyed by that. And after that, we head to the dinner scene, one of the best scenes in the movie. Um, Bear and Nikki are out having dinner, and Bear tells Nikki. Well, Nikki asks, what would he want to do? Um, because obviously he knows that she wants to write, and Bear tells Nikki that he wants to be a food critic, and um, he has this funny little monologue about toast and butter and whatnot, and it's honestly it's pretty cute couple shit, and he gets a call from Ian. And he ignores that he's on a date, and then he gets another call. So he's like, "Well, I better take this." And Ian calls Bear, telling him that Nikki has lied about her dad being sick. Ian also tells her that Sarah and Nikki had previously had a conversation not too long before. Actually, in fact, the day of trivia, I believe, because they said it was the day that he was not at work, and says that Nikki sees Bear as nothing more than a brother. But I'm wondering if Sarah had proclaimed her feelings for Bear to Nikki. If she's a good friend to Sarah, she's not going to say, "Well, yeah, I mean, I like him too." I feel like a friendship would be more important than a boy, so I feel like she would just say that she doesn't. Granted, I don't know. I'm not a woman. I don't claim to know. But so then after that, Bear starts to come to the conclusion. He starts to think in his head that maybe it did have something to do with that one wish willow. Because at this point, we know obviously as the audience, but Bear has no idea. He thinks it's just kind of a weird coincidence that happened, or at least he wants to believe it is. And he starts to come to the conclusion that okay, maybe there's something with this one wish willow thing. He goes back to sit down, and Nikki gifts Bear her tiger's eye that she got passed down from her mother, and it's supposed to be for confidence, which obviously Bear is lacking. And Bear asks Nikki if she loves him more than anyone on earth, as his wish states, and she says yes. So then Bear confronts Nikki about her lie about her father's illness. And then we get one of the creepiest scenes in the movie.
Nikki.
Yeah?
Does your dad really have cancer?
No. No, no, no.
What?
No, 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 don't do that! I thought we were having a nice day.
We are. Sit
Why
down.
does it matter? I thought we were having a nice
We are.
day.
We are. It's okay.
And she sits back down and she says, "It doesn't even matter." And Bear claims that it doesn't matter to him. He's like, whatever. Bear's just horny. He just wants, at this point, he just wants Nikki. He wants her. He doesn't really care what's going on. And it cuts to this really like sad and uncomfortable scene of him and Nikki having sex. And I didn't notice this the first time. It's kind of a running theme. A lot of stuff I didn't notice the first time I watched it. And I didn't notice this the first time. And I actually listened to an interview with Curry Barker, and he said that there is a tear rolling down Nikki's face in this scene. And I believe that is real Nikki kind of peeking through. But yeah, she just kind of like lays there. She makes the sounds, as you will, of her and Bear having sex, and it's really uncomfortable. It's very rapey, obviously, very sexual assault like. And I mean, realistically, it is. I mean, that's not Nikki. It's something controlling her body, but it's not Nikki. It's hard to watch. Um, they fall asleep that night, and another wonderfully creepy moment from uh Indy Navarrete in this scene. Bear wakes up and Nikki's not there, and he's like, Nikki, where are you? And he's looking around the room, and he's kind of putting on his eye binoculars, and he's like, where the hell is she? And he sees her standing in the corner, and she's like, I like to watch you sleep. You're cute when you sleep. And which is creepy. After she kind of slowly, methodically walks out of the corner, and then he asks her to come to bed, she like scurries back into the corner. It's really unsettling. And then she starts to kind of wail, and then you see you really see the makeup on her, and it's like this uncanny valley. It almost looks like she's just hasn't slept in like years. It's very very good makeup, and yeah, that's all it is. It's makeup. It's not. There's no CGI for it or anything. And she claims to Bear that she doesn't like her dreams, and she feels like he doesn't love her as much as she loves him. And God. And then Nikki tells him to go back to sleep. So Bear tries, and then you just hear Nikki through the silence say, "Why don't you love me?" Well, screams, "Why don't you love me?" And appears from the doorway on the other side of the room, sidestepping around the bed while holding a potted flower over her face. And she freezes. And Bear's freaking out. He's like, what's going on? What do you want? What do you want from me? And what do you want me to do? And then she puts the flowers on and she says, "They're for Sandy." Like very calm and very nonchalant. The way that Indy Navarrete can like so quickly go from psycho to normal, psycho to normal, psycho to normal is insane. And then kind of a funny moment. I mean, it's funny. It's obviously creepy, but Bear tries to leave the bed while Nikki's there, and Nikki screams, "Stay!" And she prolongs the A very long. And it's pretty creepy. Maybe I can cut in a clip of that. Bear wakes up the next morning to find out that Nikki cut his hair in the night, and so he's like, "Hey, can we not do that?" And she gives like those sad puppy dog eyes. She's like, "I'm sorry." But she plays off last night and apologizes. And, Bear, being the horny man he is, just says, "Oh, it's fine." She kisses him, and he just says no more weird stuff. She sends him off to work. She packs a lunch for him. Bear gets up, about to go out the door, turns and reveals that Nikki, in an attempt to keep Bear home, has duct taped the door shut. And I'm not talking just like a couple pieces of duct tape. I'm talking the entire fucking thing looks like a fourth grade wallet that you made out of duct tape. All over the place. It's very creepy. And she says this line where she says, "Well, if you're having trouble with the door, you can just stay home. Doesn't that sound fun? Just stay home." And so he yanks on the door. He gets it to open, and Nikki stands in place, smiling after Bear leaves. And she stays in place and begins to piss herself. So that's cool. We cut to work, and Bear's having a conversation with Sarah, and Bear opens his lunch that Nikki prepared for him and finds a couple pictures. One's a picture of him that says "you" on it, and then there's a picture of Nikki and Bear while Bear's sleeping, and it's written on there, "Not me." So I can only assume it's a message from the real Nikki, and trying to do whatever she can to get out. And so Sarah asks him if he's going to Ian's party, and he doesn't know anything about it. Sarah expresses how odd it is that he and Nikki are dating, and I think that's also because Sarah has feelings for Bear. Sarah gets a rejection letter from I believe she's going to art school or a tattoo school. I'm not quite sure. She's going to be a tattoo artist, so I'm assuming it's probably art school. I don't know if there is such a thing as tattoo school. I don't know. But I digress. And she gets another rejection letter in the mail, and she's obviously very upset. And Bear consoles her, and they kind of have a nice moment, and you kind of see what like could have been, Bear and Sarah instead of Bear and Nikki. And Sarah reads a sticky note that was on the lid of Bear's lunchbox. It says, "My little food critic." And then on the back it says, "What's the verdict? Cat?" Question mark. She's like, "Bear, the fuck does that even mean? What does that even mean?" Bear looks down at a sandwich, realizing that Nikki has once again taken the cat out of the trash and cut the cat up and put some of it in Bear's fucking lunch. Put it in his goddamn sandwich that he already took a bite out of. So obviously Bear throws up and is disgusted. And then it cuts to the end of the day, end of the workday. Bear gives Ian a ride home, and Ian grills him about Nikki, claiming that it's a bad look because it looks like he's taking advantage of her because she seems so irregular, so abnormal, not Nikki. And I mean, at this point, he is very clearly taking advantage of Nikki. So Bear tries to change the subject. Says, "Well, what about your party tonight?" And Ian ends up actually inviting Bear on the pretense that Nikki can't come. And that ain't gonna happen. So Bear gets home and he sits outside his house and he calls the One Wish Willow helpline, and the operator answers, and we get an awesome cameo by Curry Barker, the director of the film. And Bear asks if he can alter his wish. I would like to point out that Bear does not ask to cancel his wish. He understands what's going on, and he still wants to keep the wish. I think that this is like the real turning point where Bear realizes, okay, this is the One Wish Willow. I have fundamentally changed Nikki. This is not the Nikki I know, but I want to keep it. And I just think that this makes Bear the villain. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Bear is the bad guy. He then asks, obviously he can't cancel the wish, can't alter the wish. And then he asks her, is her love real? And Curry says probably one of my favorite lines from the movie: "Just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real." He then asks Bear if he wants to talk to Nikki, and in a very unsettling scene, honestly, all we really need to know about the One Wish Willow. I like how little they show. They don't show all their cards, and I like that. It leaves it more up in the air as to what's really going on. But the operator puts real Nikki on the line, and she's just screaming hysterically. And Bear gets scared and hangs up the phone because once again, Bear cannot confront his own feelings. The running theme in this movie, he is a weenie. So Bear comes home and Nikki hasn't moved since he left. She is disgusting. She's covered in vomit and piss and shit on the floor, and she's like, "Oh, I'll wash up. I'll clean it up." And she goes to the bathroom and she starts to take a shower, and Bear is yelling through the door that you can't cook the cat, Nikki. You can't cook the cat. And then he tells her that Ian has invited him to a boys' night, and she cuts the water off quick. And she's like, "Boys' night? Okay, yeah, I'll go." And then he says, "Well, I was just gonna be the boys." And then she freaks out, and I want to think that she's lying here and says that Sarah said she was going. Um, so then obviously you brings her, and at the party, the whole group is playing some sort of drunk Jenga game. I can only assume some drunk giant Jenga game. He pulls a block, and I'm not sure what her thing said. I'm sure it either said like take a drink or read something from your phone. And she reads this disgusting, dark, and incestual Hansel and Gretel poem. And I feel like, and I'm sure that it's totally meant to do this, that it's relaying real Nikki's feelings towards Bear, that she is forced to be with him, but it feels like her brother. So it's like disgusting and it feels wrong because it is wrong. And I won't even quote the poem because it's like you got to watch it because it is it's disgusting. It definitely makes your skin crawl. It makes you uncomfortable, which is, I mean, obviously what it's supposed to do. And so she ends with the one of the lines from the trailer that the love only the branch or willow tree could conjure. So then it's Bear's turn, and Bear pulls out a block and says kiss the person to your left. Well, the person to his left is Sarah. So Nikki puts on this insane frowny face and gets up and comes around Sarah and locks onto Sarah's chair. He pulls her back slowly, gets into Bear, and gets next to Bear and kisses him. And then she gets up spewing the shit about how everyone will die not knowing the bond that her and Bear have. And she kind of brushes Bear's face, and then real Nikki snaps back in probably one of the most memorable scenes of the movie by far. And she's screaming, "It's not me! It's not me!" And then she grabs a bottle, she breaks it on the table, and twice she stabs herself in the face, like brutally. The music cue on it is so punchy. It makes you like really feel it, and it's disturbing. It got me, that's for sure, the first time that I watched it. So and Bear sits there and like unfazed by it. He's like, "Oh my fucking god, not this shit again." And everybody's freaking out, and it's like, you asshole, fucking do something." So then he tries to take her to the ER, and I'm not quite sure, you don't really hear any audio, but he's like telling the nurse that she needs to go in, and Nikki's just kind of dancing outside the car. You know, do you? It's definitely creepy. They get back to Bear's place, and Nikki and Bear are sitting in the kitchen, and he asks if she likes him and if she's happy. And then she says, "Yeah, I'm happy." And he's like, "No, is Nikki happy?" And then she looks up at him and she smiles and she says, "I'm your freaky Nikki." Very creepy. Very creepy. Like, he asked her to be normal and to be Nikki, to act like Nikki, and she screams that she can't be Nikki. And Bear says that it's not real. Their love isn't real. So Nikki, in another very creepy moment, like reverse walks back towards the kitchen and tells Bear not to. She's like, "Don't be scared. Don't be scared." And then fucking pump fakes him. And like, I know it's not supposed to be funny, but it did make me laugh a little bit the second time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh fuck." But the second time I watched it, it didn't get me. I honestly kind of thought it was a little funny. And then Bear says, she's like, "Okay, well, you take the bed tonight. I'm gonna go stay over at Ian's." And she very quickly says, "Okay," and walks away. And you hear her rummaging around in the drawers in the kitchen. And I can only presume that she pulls out a knife. I don't know if I ever really saw it, but and she basically says that if she leaves, or if he leaves, that she's gonna end her life. She goes on this little monologue about how she's gonna get colder and colder, um, the longer he's away, and yeah, very, very disturbing. Um, Later that night, they're sleeping, and Bear gets a text from Sarah. Mind you, Sarah is texting Bear in the middle of the night and asking to meet him. Either she's coming over or they're going to meet at this park or whatever. And mind you, that she just saw, she was at this party. She saw what Nikki did. She saw how unhinged and insane she is right now. And she's texting her mans at 2:00 in the morning. Come on, girl. She kind of doing this to herself. But she texts Bear to meet her at the park, and Bear is attempting to leave. Nikki wakes up. Real Nikki wakes up, I should say. While obsessive Nikki is still asleep, and she begs Bear to kill her, but he refuses. And then Bear says, "What's so wrong with being with me?" And which is another, like, Bear knows that this is wrong. He has to, and he's still just like, whatever. He's just so he's just so obsessed with the idea of being with Nikki that he can't even fathom that she doesn't want him. And she says that she's never been with him, and I mean it's very heartbreaking, because like this is her last like effort to like really be free. And so then it cuts to Sarah and Bear are sitting in Sarah's van together, and Televisions by Current Joys playing once again on the radio. Very good song. Sarah reveals to Bear that Ian and Nikki had been casually hooking up for about 2 years now, and is concerned that Nikki is using him to get back at Ian. And Sarah, I mean, I don't think she could spell it any clearer that she is attracted to Bear, and she has feelings for Bear, and she wants what's best for him, and she thinks that that's her. And she mentions that well, I was on your left at the game, and she says you're supposed to kiss me, and right then you can just see it for like a fraction of a second. Nikki storms to the window, breaks the glass, and then puts a brick on the steering wheel and smashes Sarah's head repeatedly into the brick until she is like to a pulp, her eyeball bulging out, and kills her. And then she runs over to console Bear on the other side as he's, obviously freaking out as to what he just saw. And Nikki tells Bear, which obviously she's right. She tells Bear that it's his fault, that he wished for this. He's like, "You wish for this, baby. It's okay though. It's okay though. I'm gonna fix it. So they go to the music store. I'm not sure what they do there, but I do know I realized after the second watch, it is mentioned earlier in the movie that Sarah's father keeps a gun in the safe, and Nikki grabs the gun. Important. Nikki grabs the gun, and then she tells Bear to go home while she disposes of the body. So then Bear's sitting alone in his car, and he reads Sarah's last school letter that she got. She was gonna open it with Bear, revealing that she got into her art school. So Bear obviously starts screaming, and he's he's upset, and obviously he has no one to be upset with but himself. And Bear rushes to the crystal store, and he tries to buy another another one wish willow to try and reverse his wish. There's actually a pretty funny scene with the shopkeeper where he kind of toys the bear a little bit, and Bear tries to get him to make a wish because you can only make one wish, obviously. And the crystal shop guy says, "Oh, I've already made my wish." So he turns to Ian, and he goes over to Ian's house, and obviously Ian doesn't believe him, and he is kind of like he's like kind of almost in disbelief as to what Bear's saying, and he thinks he's just full of shit. And instead of wishing for Bear's wish to be undone, he wishes for $1 billion, and it causes cash to rain from the ceiling in a pretty funny and tragic moment. And Bear just cannot really believe what he's seeing, and so he takes his final one wish willow to Nikki to see if she will reverse his wish. He arrives home, and he discovers Sarah's mutilated corpse sitting in, I want to say his room, his bedroom, some other room off from the living room, stripped of all of her clothes. And there's this and then he asks Nikki, and Nikki kind of walks like stop motion almost behind Bear in the window, and it's a really creepy shot. And she is like chain smoking a cigarette, and he turns around, and she is wearing Sarah's clothes. She has drawn on Sarah's tattoos, and I want to say that she's either wearing her hair or has put her hair into the same style as Sarah's, because I think it's still like long like Nikki's. Because Sarah's hair is like more right above the shoulders. But she then threatens Bear and herself at gunpoint. She pulls out the gun, and she says to Bear, "Tell me that you love me." And he says, "I love you." And she yells at him to scream it, so he screams it. And while this is going on, Ian comes over, and he's pounding on the door to get in. He's like, bro, I just got $1 billion. And finally opens the door, and immediately I don't even know if he mutters a word. Nikki turns, pop right in his head. Ian falls on the floor. Ian's dead. Ian's out of the movie. It was actually pretty insane. First time I saw that. And so then Bear kind of is like playing into Nikki's need, like wants, and he is like kind of consoling her on the couch, and he manages to grab the gun, and he makes his way to the bathroom, and he locks himself in the bathroom, and Nikki is like freaking out. She wants him to open the door, and he won't. And when she stops, he goes and he's gonna kill himself. He first, puts the gun at his heart. He then puts it in his mouth, and he still, knowing everything he knows, can't go through with it. So he takes a different approach, and he opens the cupboard, and he finds his grandma's oxy, and he is gonna overdose himself on oxy. And so he takes the pills, and we hear and then he kind of regrets it. So it's like he's about to start trying to gag himself, so he spits him up, and then you hear a snap and Nikki has made the same wish that Bear made, but on Bear, wishing that Bear loved her more than anyone else in the world. And so he stops trying to fish the drugs out, and Bear then emerges from the bathroom, and they another piece of music, "Love Is in the Air" Part 2 is playing, and it crescendos when they kiss, and then something is a little off. I mean, this is the first time in the movie that we've seen two people unconditional love for each other, but it's obviously due to the wish. And Bear collapses after he kisses Nikki, and he is dying from the overdose. And he's foaming at the mouth, and then he dies, and Nikki, still obsession Nikki, she grabs a gun and she goes to put it in her mouth, and then she snaps. She's real Nikki, and she drops the gun. She pushes Bear off, and she is horrified by everything around her. And then the movie ends, and I mean, you cannot help but feel bad for Nikki. I mean, it's almost, it's a fate worse than death. All of her friends are dead, and she is at the, I mean, in the eyes of the law, she's at fault for all of this, you know? But I mean, we all know what happened, but I mean, yeah, try explaining that. So yeah, I mean, that was the entire plot of Obsession. I will say Obsession is a must-see movie. If you are a fan of horror movies, I would highly recommend it. I feel like if you're a fan, you have to watch this. I'd say that concludes the review. Thank you for anyone who stayed through the end and finished. If you liked it, like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to putting more of these out. Catch you in the next one.